Welcome everyone to the remote commission meeting of November 2nd, 2021 at the Port of Olympia. The Port of Olympia is working diligently to address the threat posed by COVID-19 to Thurston County, the state of Washington, and the United States. On March 16, 2020, the commission adopted resolution 2020-03, authorizing certain emergency powers in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, including invoking applicable emergency exemptions to meeting notice requirements and location restrictions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to that resolution, the Port of Olympia Commission is conducting today's meeting remotely. The Port is following the guidance from Thurston County Health Department to take all efforts to prevent the spread of this virus and is acting in the interest of the safety and welfare of the public, the community, and our employees to limit its spread. So with that, Commissioner McGregor, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Whoop, I didn't just unplug myself. Okay, where did I go? Anyway, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our country, to our flag. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Do we have any amendments to tonight's agenda?
I would like to, and it may fall under other business, so if you want me to mention it at that point, but I would like to have a discussion on the Oyo Hotel during that part of the meeting, if we could.
Second motion.
So it's been moved and seconded to amend the agenda by adding a discussion of the Oyo Hotel under other business tonight. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any other amendments to the agenda? With that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So
So
moved. Second.
Second.
So it's been moved and
That's a good
seconded
sign.
to,
Yeah.
thank you, Commissioners. It's been moved and seconded to accept the amended agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 So great, we have an agenda. Next, we have special reports tonight, and we have a warrant over 200,000. Would somebody, Sam, would you like to talk to us about that?
Certainly, there's a warrant in packet tonight for $226,104.91. And this is for the third quarter leasehold payment that goes to the county.
So is it safe to say that that we have 4 of those per year totaling in approximately $1 million of basically tax payments to the state from port properties?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Next, we have executive director report. So Sam, would you like to continue on?
Certainly will. Have Sheila bring that up, and I am bring it over. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Sheila. Marine Terminal Director Lynn Fosher met with the new Consul General of Vietnam on November 9th. The meeting was very fruitful, and the Consul General shared about his children and how our port's export of dairy cattle is positively impacting his family as well as many other children in Vietnam. Next slide. The Port of Olympia's Fall Seaport newsletter has been distributed. You can find a copy on the Port Seaport page. Next slide. Port of Olympia offices and Swantown Marina Fuel Dock will be closed on Thursday, November 25th and Friday, November 26th in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. Next slide. And it is with great sadness that I announce that Lynn Fosher's upcoming departure from the Port of Olympia. Lynn has been a valuable part of the port's team since early 2015. He's done a fantastic job as Marine Terminal Director. We wish Lynn well as he starts his next journey with Jones Stevedoring. Thanks for all you've done for us, Lynn. And next slide. As always, we have several ways for the public to engage with us. Here are some easy ways to contact us, give us feedback, or request a conversation. And that's it for this evening.
Thank you, Sam. Commissioner McGregor, do you have a question, comment?
I just want to comment that Len has been at the port for about 7 years, and I have enjoyed working with him, having a common interest in the moving of marine cargo across the dock. And I have enjoyed working with him, and I found him to be very professional, and I wish him well in his new endeavor. I'm sad to see him go, but I'm glad that he has an opportunity that he's pleased to take up. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGregor. And I expressed my positive appreciation of Len in the email to him, but publicly, Len, it was great to have you guiding the Marine Terminal. And I mean, I believe that it was challenging at times, but you really, I believe, got the Marine Terminal moving in a much better direction. So thank you for your service, Len. And with that, Commissioner Zeta, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd also like to express my appreciation to Len, and I understand it's been a real tough job. It's hard to get business down to the Port of Olympia, and sometimes people have said that it's not doing well because of Len, and I disagree. Mr. Fosher has done the best he can possibly do with a real tough situation.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Next, we have litigation report and Felicia Brown, our own Felicia Brown. Hi, Felicia.
Hello there, Commissioner. I do not have a litigation report this evening.
Well, no news is good news. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Next, we have a public comment tonight, and I did not see a list for public comment ahead of time. So let me go to the magic list here of attendees. And I see Ms. Deborah Patton has her hand up, followed by, I thought I saw Dennis Langens with a hand up, but I'm not sure. So let's just start out with Deborah Patton and see where it goes.
Well, thank you. I didn't know that Len was leaving us, and I'm super disappointed to hear that. As a member of the POCAC on my second term, I worked extensively with Len on a number of our projects, and I don't know, he's been a super good friend to working women and men on the waterfront, and boy, Jones is going to be darn lucky to have him. So hail and farewell, Len.
Thank you, Ms. Patton, for your comments. Anybody else like to give public comment of a general nature addressing port topics? Last call. Any other public comment at this time? There will be a chance for public comment later in the meeting on the advisory calendar.
It looks like we're having a hard time getting Dennis Langens on here, but here,
Okay,
let's see if we can
Dennis, I
find-
see your hand up. Would you like to chime in?
Yeah. Am I in now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. That's a tough road to get into. Anyway, I have a general comment, and actually kind of specific to the PCI extension. I sent you a written public comment for the November 8th meeting, sharing my concerns about potential conflicts of interest that I saw a history of. The commission made no response, so I take it you didn't put much weight in it. But anyway, I'll go back and make an oral comment now. I think the extension of this contract reveals a lack of governance and management control. In a minor way, the contract expires the end of the year, and it's just brought up at the end of the year. So that's a minor technical matter. But the serious matter, I think, is that this whole contract appears to be the product of a substantial conflict of interest, in that a high-level staff member directed a port contract in a fair, I think, probably between $2 to $3 million over the currency, to a firm owned by relatives. This has been allowed to go on for 9 years. This has been the whole tenure of this present commission. It's gone on for 2 executive directors. So it seems to be an acceptable practice, which I find rather unacceptable. I think the practice clearly goes against the principles outlined in RCW 42-52-900. I won't read all that, but it's basically that public officials, both elected and government employees, hold their position in trust. Okay, you have a fiduciary responsibility there for the public. And they must not use their office for personal gain or private advantage. Well, I think that wording is fairly clear. So as I looked at this, it appears to me that there's been a sweetheart arrangement for 9 years. I don't recall this thing ever going out to bid. I mean, this type of coziness rises the specter of corruption. Now, I hesitate to use a harsh term like public corruption, but I did, as I thought about that, Google it, and public corruption includes cronyism and nepotism. And it's found that it's public officials using public money or granting contracts to friends and family. Well, it certainly has the appearance of impropriety. I think that there is probable cause that the officials at both commission and management should have this investigated by an independent third party. I think the issue of conflict of interest is not going to go away. It's just going to heighten in the next commission. That's not your bailiwick right now. But I think good practice really needs to have this thing evaluated. I don't know if you'd use a state auditor or a retired judge or what have you, but I think there's a need to get to the bottom of what went on here. I mean, even the appearance of a conflict is a serious public matter. And I think the public has a right to know, maybe it's all innocent. Maybe it can be cleared up. I hope it can, but I think, when you're talking about that much money and it looks like there's been no oversight, I think it warrants some attention. I did listen in to the Tumwater Council's work session with the executive director. And one of the council people there brought up concern about conflict of interest of the port, which I think was probably referring to future conflicts on real estate. The executive director assured the council person that there are no conflicts at the port. Well, I think to really make that statement valid, we need to investigate what happened with PCI. Lastly, I'll just switch topics for a minute. Is you'll be approving the budget tonight. At the last meeting, on several times, I think Commissioner Zeta brought up what happened to the loss before tax levy, the most clear-cut report to the public that there is. But she was, there was a stonewalling there, nothing was said. Is that ever going to come back, or have you changed your financial measures without telling anybody. I think that is something that should be reported to the public. It was there. It was clearly supported by past commissions and saying that this is the #1 financial measure, but lo and behold, it's nowhere to be seen. So I think there are issues of governance and management that really need to be attended to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langens. Any other public comment tonight? Okay, with that, I'd like to turn to commission response to public comment. Commissioners, do you have any response to either Mr. Langens or Ms. Patton?
Well, I'll go first if I can. Thank you, both of you, for your comments. I've taken notes, and I want to point out to Mr. Langens that the PCI contract has been through 3 independent investigations under the same allegations that you brought up tonight, and it has been found to be unfounded. But nevertheless, come March, I think, of this year, staff is hoping to have put out a competitive bidding process to get back contracts to see how they compare, and potentially it could be PCI again, or it could be another vendor. But I want to tell you that it's been looked at 3 different times, investigated 3 different times, and found to be no basis for what you have suggested there. So with that, I'll leave that, and we have not made any change in our financial measures at this point. I know it is something that will happen probably with the new commission as they come on, but in any event, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. How about you, Commissioner Zeta? Any comment?
Yes, also replying to Mr. Langens, I agree with Commissioner McGregor. There have been no changes made to our financial measures. Can you hear okay, Commissioner Downing?
Yes.
Okay, you looked alarmed. I was afraid that something was wrong with my sound.
No, I'm
yes,
fine. Thank you.
Commissioner McGregor is correct. There have been no changes to our financial measures. Therefore, yes, indeed, we should be hearing about our financial measures. They should inform the decisions that we make about our budget process. We have not heard what our financial measures are, in particular, the loss before tax levy. Yes, that is still our primary, our #1 financial measure. And yes, we still need to know. I do want to thank our finance staff for sharing with me data on our finances, about our debt. And I had made some guesses about what our debt levels might be. And now we have the actual numbers. We know that our total debt is about $60 million. About 23 million of that is for properties. About over 10 million is for the marine terminal. About 10 million is for the stormwater treatment facility. About 8 million is for the Swantown Marina. The fuel dock is a big part of that. About 8 million is for environmental and Cascade Pole. And wrapped up in several of those categories is about $7 million worth of dredging. So that's $60 million worth of debt. What our debt before tax levy is, or losses before tax levy, is for each business unit. I do not have those figures, but that's at least a start. And I trust we'll get a fuller accounting at some point. Let's see, Mr. Langens, to your other concern about the conflicts with our port computing contract, the Commissioner McGregor says there have been 3 investigations. Wow, I didn't know there had been 3. I knew about 1 last year, and that is when I first learned about this conflict of interest. Commissioner McGregor says the investigation concluded there was no conflict of interest. That is not how I read that investigation. The investigator said they were not making any conclusions. There are some clear issues around truth. There's concerns that not all the parties who were investigated told the truth. In fact, we know that not all the parties who were interviewed in that investigation last year told the truth. You're right that this is a longstanding concern. There is an appearance of conflict of interest. A senior staff member was overseeing a multi-million-dollar contract over the years by and the money was going to a direct family member. While that senior staff person is no longer at the port by their own choice, this is still an ongoing concern with oversight and management. So you're right. We need to get to the bottom of this and make sure it doesn't happen again. As to the incoming commissioner, it appears that there may be a conflict of interest since the incoming commissioner works for a real estate agency, brokered a multi-million-dollar deal for that agency, and the agency will make more money if the port commission, the future port commission, approves.
Point of order, point
more-
of order, point of
No,
order.
I will finish. I am stating
I would like to
facts.
ask Felicia, our legal counsel, to weigh in on a commissioner besmirching the reputation of a citizen of this county, never mind they're a future port commissioner, but I'd like to ask the legal counsel to weigh in on the legal jeopardy we're placing ourselves in by assessing, a situation that hasn't even occurred yet.
Point of order, Commissioner Downing is making an interpretation that I am not making. I am stating facts about our contract. The contract the two commissioners approved with the Panattoni lease option states that the realtor will earn more as Panattoni develops more. The contract also states that the commission,
Point of order,
Is
you're way off
responsible-
topic, Commissioner Zeta.
the commission is
Felicia, do you have
responsible,
anything to say about this situation? Yes or no?
the commission is responsible for approving the,
Point of order has been
Yeah.
called and we're waiting for an answer from our legal counsel.
So Commissioner Downing, the question that you posed to me had to do with what happens if you say something about anybody, really? And is there potential for legal consequence? And the short answer is yes. Anytime that you make comments about another person that cannot be upheld by the facts of the situation, they can pursue legal action. That legal action can be against the port as an agency, the commission as a party in itself, or against an individual.
so for
Thank you,
example,
Felicia. So the chair would respectfully ask Commissioner Zeta to narrow her comments to a response to Mr. Langens and not speculating about future commissions or future activities. Thank you.
so I will continue my discussion of the contract with which this commission signed, the lease option with Panattoni. And I will also point out that the commission chair called no point of order on Commissioner McGregor when he discussed the potential conflict of interest with PCI. So to continue my discussion.
Point
the
of order,
Panattoni-
Commissioner, I don't know where you're going with this because we were talking about PCI and that was the comment that Mr. Langens made. He inferred a little bit about the deal as he was listening to the Tumwater City Council. And now you're getting it into an expanded discussion. And some of what you are saying is untrue. We do not know that people were not truthful in the PCI investigation. That is your allegation. And I beg to differ with you. There have been 3 of these investigations into the PCI contract over the number of years that I've been sitting on this commission, and there has been no justification to warrant any kind of a canceling of the contract or that there was nepotism or any of that. And if you would like to go back and look at those other 2 that I know of, then you're certainly welcome to do that and get your own conclusions out of those. But to say that people were untrue, we don't know they were untrue. And if you do know, then you should have brought up that as part of the investigation if you were a part of it. So I got to
in
call a
fact-
point of order at that.
So Commissioner McGregor, my point about PCI was that you were allowed to speak about it, as was I, without Commissioner Downing's objection. As to the new matter you have just brought up, as to the truthfulness or not of the people
You
who were
brought it up,
interviewed,
Commissioner. You brought it up, not me. You brought
the
up the truth
chair will
part.
direct the commissioner to cease interrupting, and I will address the point raised by the commissioner. The point
Commissioner
raised by the
Zeta, I'll be
commission.
happy to support you. Please just keep your comments to PCI or the loss before taxes. And let's not talk about Panatone because Mr. Langens, you're not responding to Mr. Langens because two things he talked about were PCI and the loss before taxes. So please, follow the agenda, which is commission response to public comment. Thank you.
In fact, Commissioner, Mr. Langens did ask about cronyism and PCI. I will first respond to Commissioner McGregor as this addresses one of Mr. Langens' points. Commissioner McGregor suggested that if I had concerns about lack of truthfulness in the investigation, I should have brought it up. Both you and I, Commissioner Downing, brought that up in our conversations about the investigation, and you and I both agreed that untruths were told in that process. It is also worth noting that neither you nor I were interviewed in the course of the investigation. If we were, that would have shed additional light on the PCI investigation. Now to Mr. Langens' final question.
Like, I don't understand why.
If I may, to Mr. Langens' final question, as to a possible conflict of interest regarding Panatone, I will address the lease option, which the commission approved last year. The terms of the lease option are that the realtor, which brokered that lease option for the port, will earn more as Panatone develops more of the port land, up to $1.57 million. Additionally, it is up to the Port Commission.
Commissioner Downing,
to-
I'd like to call a point of order and to echo the sentiments of the two commissioners and to point out that Commissioner Zeta is not allowing you to curtail her commentary that is outside the realm of this topic and is not factually based. So I would support you in having her stop her commentary on the Panatone issue.
My comments are completely factual and they are supported by the lease option, which is in the public record. As Panatone develops more, the real estate broker makes more, as Mr. Rowe has confirmed in these meetings, up to a 1.57 million commission, and commissioners must approve each stage of the development. So if commissioners are approving development that results in profit to their business, that may, Mr. Langens, indeed be a conflict of interest. You are correct.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Zeta. Now I'd like to respond to Mr. Langens, and I guess I have to add Panatone here because maybe he said 3 words about Panatone. Number one, the loss before the tax levy. I can tell you that the port overall has a positive operating income, but after depreciation, it's negative. So we need to cover our depreciation better than we're doing today. And Mr. Langens, if you'd like to send me an email, I'll give you that exact number, loss before the tax levy. It's easy to figure out. It's right in the budget. I don't have my budget documents right in front of me, but it's right in the budget. Regarding the PCI contract, I became aware last year that it was not being put out to bid. So my concern is that it get put out to bid, which tonight's topic is about putting it out to bid, yet we need 3 more months with the existing contract to get that bid accomplished. So that's perfectly good, and it's good management by these 3 commissioners that we uniformly insisted that it be put out to bid. I don't want to say any more about that topic because I don't know where the legal lines are, because there's some things went on, and I encourage you, you said some things, I have no idea where you're getting your information, but I encourage you to submit public records requests if you'd like to search the topic anymore. And then the last topic is Panatone. Well, I don't have really anything to say about that, other than the fact that I want to commend the incoming Port Commissioner, Amy Evans, for recusing herself from discussions about Panatoni as we move forward. So, I mean, that's an extremely ethical thing that she's done there. So I just want to say that. That's
Point
the
of
end my
order, I call a
response
point of
to you.
order, point of order, I call a point of order, point of order.
About what?
The president insisted that other commissioners may not mention incoming commissioners, and I insist the same for I insist that the president be consistent.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeta. I'm done. At this point, I'm done with public comment, and we're done with public comment. And let's move on to consent calendar, bills and vouchers. Tonight, we need to approve, or I'd like to approve October batches 39 through 43 in the amount of $1,067,973.53. Do I have a move to approve the consent calendar? Do I have a move
So moved,
to?
so moved, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes. Thank you, commissioners. Next, we move to the action calendar, and we have budget adoption, 2022 operating budget capital investment plan and tax levy resolution 2021-08 tax levy certification and resolution 2021-09 adoption of the 2022 operating budget capital investment plan, including rates and fees. We have our own Matt Peach presenting. Welcome, Matt.
Good evening, commissioners. Next slide, please. Tonight's agenda includes a final review of the 2022 statutory budget, capital investment plan, budget overview, tax levy, and non-operations. The last two slides include motions to approve the levy factor in the 2022 operating budget, capital investment plan, which includes our rates and fees. Next slide, please. The 2022 statutory budget reads as follows. Beginning estimated cash from 2021 is 12.461 million. Operating revenues are 14.352 million. Expenses are 12.114 million. Tax revenues are 7.124 million. Other net cash expenditures are 2.265 million. Our debt service is 4.611 million. Our capital investment from cash reserves is 2,010,000, leaving forecasted ending cash at the end of 2022 of 12.937 million. Next slide, please. The 2022 capital budget includes expenditures of 2.8 million. These costs will be paid for from 861,000 of grant funding, leaving $2,010,000 from reserve port funds. Next slide, please. Combining the income and expenses from our 4 business units result in 14.332 million of operating revenues, operating costs of 12,094,000, leaving operating income before depreciation of 2.238 million, and adding depreciation results in a $1.6 million loss. Next slide, please. This slide has a comparison of our 2022 actual results, our 2021 budget, and our 2022 budget. Comparing budget to budget, we have an increased income before depreciation of 1.2%. Next slide, please. Per the request from our last meeting, rather than budget for the additional 1% tax levy, that amount has been reduced to 0.43% or $30,150. The result is a tax levy of 7.124 million. Next slide, please. Reviewing our tax levy uses, our previous meeting resulted in a request to include budgeted amounts of Lacey Makerspace and Community Solar of $10,000 each. Both are reflected as uses of our tax dollars. Additionally, 10,000 was added to the small cities budget, making the budgeted amount 40,000. The uses for our tax levy dollars result in $7.124 million, the same as the tax levy amount, resulting in neither a surplus nor a deficit. And the last 2 slides are questions and then 2 sample motions.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioners, do you have any questions or discussion of Matt? Zeta, I see your hand up. Commissioner Zeta, please go ahead.
Mr. Peach, I want to thank you for your careful work on the budget and for getting the tax levy down below 0.5%. That's the best we've done in memory. So thank you for doing that. I would like to look at the 2022 capital budget slide. That is slide number, let's see, 4. Now, in a recent meeting, there was a 292,000 extra added to the maintenance, the green on the bottom, and I don't see that there now.
The 292,000 is under Marina Boatworks. It's Marina Electrical Replacement Phase 2.
Oh, right,
Towards the top.
okay. So it's still in there, okay, thank you. And then final question, Commissioner Downing indicated that some of the financial measures were now available here, and I'm sorry if I'm not seeing those here. Can you help me find those?
There are no financial measures as part of this budget presentation.
Right, that was my understanding also. Thank you for confirming that, Mr. Peach.
Thank you, Matt, for enduring this process with us. You've been working on this a long time, and it's nice to get it down to where we're actually going to take a vote on it now. So thank you for your hard work and for all the staff's contribution to bringing together a budget for 2022. Thank you.
Oh, Matt, thanks. Can you go to slide, I think it's slide 7. Oh, great, thanks. And just like to reiterate what Commissioner Zeta said, this is our lowest tax levy increase since this commission has been together, 0.43%. And that's, really is a testament to all the business units starting to run more efficiently, and testament to Sam's leadership. So I appreciate that. And of course, good presentation, Matt. It lays it out pretty clear that we want to be concerned about, reducing the tax burden while still increasing the revenues at the port and increasing community amenities. We're still continuing things like the Harbor Patrol. We're planning for a 5-person commission. We're continuing trail maintenance throughout the port property. So a lot of good things happening. So, I feel good about this budget, and I echo that my fellow commissioners when they say, it's always tough, but it was, especially a lot of give and take and a lot of good discussion this fall over this. You want to, Matt, turn back to that first motion?
Well, I am prepared to make a motion to approve resolution 2021-08, a resolution to adopt the levy amount for 2022, which is a 0.43% increase over 2021.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any other discussion before we take a vote on this motion? All in favor of the motion to approve resolution 2021-08, resolution to adopt the levy amount for 2022, which is a 0.43% increase over 2021. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, commissioners. We have another resolution, Matt.
So I will make a motion to approve resolution 2021-09, a resolution of the Port of Olympia Commission authorizing, providing for acceptance, approval, and adoption of the final 2022 annual operating budget, including annual user rates and fees and capital investment plan pursuant to RCW 53.35.045.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? I'll second that. So it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2021-09, a resolution of the Port of Olympia Commission authorizing, providing for acceptance, approval, and adoption of the final 2022 annual operating budget, including annual user rates and fees and capital investment plan pursuant to RCW 53.35.045. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. Is there one more resolution, Matt?
No, that's the last one.
Thank you then. And thank you, commissioners, again for working through that budget adoption tonight and all the other meetings we had. And thank you to the public for all your input, constructive comments. Next, we have Information Technology Services, Port Computing Incorporated contract extension. And Matt, you're up again.
All right, well, good evening again. Tonight, I'm presenting our information services contract and our request to extend the contract. Next slide, actually, Shayla. For an additional 3 months. The port utilizes a third party for information technology services, including hardware and software support. The port entered into a contract with our current support provider, Port Computing Incorporated, in January of 2013. The current contract with PCI expires on December 31st, 2021. An RFQ was issued November 18th, 2021. And I know the slide says November 2022, but 2022, but it was issued a few days ago. So my apologies for that error. Next slide, please. IT provides essential support to the commission, staff, and port operations. They are instrumental in infrastructure design and management, network design and implementation, and software and phone support. They provide technical management to include network security, data backup, and network communication. Next slide, please. Let's see here. Extending the contract will ensure continuity of service throughout the competitive bid process. Staff is proposing a limited contract extension to the current agreement with PCI. This will allow time for a thorough RFQ&P process during late 2021 and into early 2022 to ensure proper evaluation and vetting, and allows time for training and transfer of knowledge should a new vendor be selected. Next slide, please. The extension would add an additional $66,000 to the current contract. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the current amendment would extend the contract through March 31st, 2022, authorize additional fees for the extension of $66,000 with a not to exceed of $379,040 for 2021 and Q1 2022. And the next 2 slides include questions, and then the last slide is a proposed motion.
Thank you, Matt. So at this time, commissioners, we've seen this same topic under advisory. Now it's on the action calendar. Do you have any questions or comments about this?
My only comment is thank you, Matt, for bringing it forward. One of the things that I've wanted to discuss is how many times do we extend a contract before we go and by amendment rather than going back out for competitive bid process. And I think that this will allow us to do that and to take it back out, and hopefully in the first quarter, when we get the bid results, we'll be able to finalize an agreement with a vendor. It may be PCI or it may be a new vendor, but at least we've got coverage between now and when the new vendor comes online. So thank you.
Oh, Commissioner Zeta, please go ahead.
Mr. Peach, thanks for bringing this to us. It's something we've needed to do for a long time. Commissioner McGregor brought up last year that we needed a review of our contracts process. And I agreed. We have yet to do that. Commissioners agreed last winter that the PCI contract should be put out to bid. We've been waiting all year for this. It's been very complicated. There are some messy loose ends. And I'm grateful to you, Mr. Peach, for moving this forward. We have some unanswered questions about why management didn't move it forward before now and why it needs to be renewed for an extra 3 months at this point, but better late than never.
Thank you, Commissioners. Matt, do you have a resolution for us?
It should be on the following slide. Sheila, can you move it forward one?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good. I'd like to make a motion to approve contract 2013-1004, amendment number 9 to Port Computing, Inc. in the amount of $66,000 and to extend the expiration date to March 31, 2022.
Motion to approve. As you've read it, Commissioner Downing.
Is there a second? Okay, I'll second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Matt. It passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Downing, I just want to note that we don't really have a process for recording a thumbs up vote from a commissioner. So if you just want to affirm that from Commissioner Zeta that she has voted in the affirmative for all 3 of the last resolutions, then the minutes can accurately record her vote.
Oh, good point. Well, good point. It's just one of those nuances of Zoom meetings. Commissioner Zeta, for the 2 budget resolutions and for the Port Computing Incorporated contract extension, do you vote in the affirmative? Can I see an audible response, please? Can I get an amen or a yes?
Let's be difficult.
Let's just say Commissioner Zeta abstained on those 3 votes, okay? Because I'm not fooling around here. Do I get a yes now, Commissioner Zeta? On those last 3 votes?
We have always accepted thumbs up as a yes, and this is, I don't know who's being difficult about changing that rule.
Thank you, Commissioner
Thumbs up has
Zeta,
always,
for,
thumbs up
thank
has always meant yes, and that has not changed.
you, Commissioner Zeta. Once more. Do you vote yes on the 2 budget resolutions and the PCI contract extension?
Thumbs up has always meant yes, and it still does.
Let the record show that Commissioner Zeta has abstained on those 3 votes.
That's inaccurate, Commissioner Downing.
Moving on to resolution 2021-10, support of Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. Sam, you've got this.
I do, and I was didn't know whether our POCAC member was going to be able to join us this evening, and I don't see him. But I think this is a simple bringing back to the commission. There were a couple minor edits made on this, and this resolution is in support of the Thurston County Climate Action Plan. So the commission has seen this previously, and this is just bringing it back for your consideration and action tonight.
Thank you, Sam. Is there a resolution that we need to make a motion on?
I think
Resolution, a motion to approve this resolution?
Yeah, I think it'd just be a motion to approve the resolution 2021, and I think it's -10. Can't quite see
I
that.
move to approve resolution 2021-10 in support of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I do have a comment if I could, before we,
So it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2021-10, resolution of the Port of Olympia Commission supporting the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. So at this time, Commissioner McGregor, you have discussion.
well, I just had a comment or a question to our executive director, because when she was making the presentation, she said there were some minor changes, but is the resolution that was in the packet the final document, or were there changes made? Okay, that
Yes.
was my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam and POCAC for pulling this together, an important document for us. So it's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution 2021-10 in support of Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I'd like to
Thank you.
thank my fellow commissioners for agreeing that this is important. I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners for agreeing to ask the POCAC to study this. And I'd like to thank the POCAC subcommittee, Tom Zamoniak, Kevin Decker, and Joel Hansen for their good work on figuring out how the Port of Olympia can contribute to the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan.
Thank you, commissioners, for your comments. Okay, we're on our way. Moving to the advisory calendar. The first item on the advisory calendar is the lease option amendment. Ellen Rowe presenting, our own Ellen Rowe. Hi, Ellen.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm here today to talk about, this is the third amendment to the option agreement for the Newmarket Industrial Campus. Next slide, please. This is the option to ground lease with Panattoni, and originally the commission approved the option agreement in July of 2020. And that was for the 200-acre area in Newmarket. We did a first amendment in September of 20, and that was to really outline the process of starting the development agreement process, along with giving additional due diligence time. And then a second amendment earlier this year in July to address the term, the HCP date, and the due diligence period. A lot of that was reflective of the HCP anticipating to take a little longer than what we originally expected when we set the option agreement in July of 2020. Next slide. What we did on this third amendment is there are a couple basic terms that we adjusted, and that was the HCP completion date of March of 2023. And this was a target that we put in to really, hopefully have this done by then, along with also try to attempt not to keep coming back to the commission and revising this as we have been doing. And then the due diligence period is also kind of tied to this date and specifically spelled out as far as what date the HCP would be completed. So we went ahead and revised that paragraph as well. And next slide. Some of the more complicated terms that were included in this amendment is we did provide for, in the event that the option is terminated due to the ability not to perform under it, the Panattoni has a right to claim up to 50% of actual expenses up to a limit of $125,000. That would be a limit of a total $250,000 in expenses, but the port would not pay more than $125,000 in actual expenses at a 50% rate. And that's to cover all the due diligence work. Also, these any reports or work done by Panattoni would be obligated to be presented to the port as part of this condition. I do want to add that based off of the work that we've seen Panattoni do so far, there is a lot of value in that work, specifically around a lot of our property reconciliation. We've done a lot of title work, survey work out there, really trying to make a comprehensive map and document out there of all of our leases, all of our lease boundaries in the areas within the option agreement area. Next slide. One of the other items here, and I do want to note that we anticipate coming back to the action meeting here in 2 weeks, a little bit more than 2 weeks, with a revision on this as presented in the original draft document. But we did want to present the full draft document as we could, but we are still working on some language and approach to the termination of the development agreement. And Panattoni's would like to see some protections in place to limit the ability to lose the development agreement under their time period of the option agreement. And really just we're trying to determine what the best approach for that while not unnecessarily constraining the port as well with the language. So right now we've got some language in there where it is obligated for the port to consult with Panattoni in the event that we were to desire to terminate the development agreement for any reason between the port and the city of Tumwater. And next slide. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Alan. At this point, is there any discussion over this topic, commissioners? Commissioner Zeta.
Yes, could we look at slide 4, please? So if the option is terminated, Mr. Rowe, the port would pay Panattoni up to $125,000 for their expenses exploring development possibilities.
For any work related to surveying documents produced under this option agreement, or any engineering work that was done and produced, wetland studies that were possibly done out there on the land, traffic studies, geotech studies, or any of the work regarding the endangered species.
Now, we're already going to be spending a lot of money on the Habitat Conservation Plan, whether Panattoni develops or not. Is that correct?
I'm not certain of the exact cost we're spending on the Habitat Conservation Plan.
$200,000 has appeared in other documents that you have shown us. So we will be paying for the Habitat Conservation Plan. We've committed to do that with Tumwater. It could be more. And now we're proposing to pay the developer for their due diligence. That is very unusual.
No, you see these clauses in documents similar to what we have. If we're not able to perform under the agreement that we've agreed to as part of this option, and we've asked Panattoni to go ahead and market this property, go ahead and invest in this property, and then if it's for some reason we're not able to perform and choose to terminate or have the agreement terminated, it's quite common.
So this is if we terminate the option, not if they terminate the option?
So if they terminate just by their choice, then no. But if they terminate for cause, then yes.
So at Panattoni's public meeting with Tumwater last month, the Panattoni developer, I believe it was Len Syke, was clearly taken aback when Tumwater's engineer, city engineer Matt, pointed out to him in multiple times that this is a high groundwater area and groundwater is going to be a major issue for him. And also that the 10-inch sewer pipe that serves the targeted development, the 30 acres they're now looking at to build a 450,000 square foot warehouse, they might have to upgrade that to a 12-inch sewer pipe. Now, I can understand that he might want us to eat some of the costs for them to study these things, and it might turn out to be too expensive for them to develop it. But that is the developer's risk that they're taking. deciding whether or not the groundwater is going to be too expensive for them, whether or not the sewer issues are going to be too difficult for them. That's a risk the developer takes. Developing is gambling.
And that
And
would
we
be,
should
that
not
would
be
be,
expected, we should
that-
not be expected to cover those gambling risks.
oh, absolutely. Yep, yep. And that would be a reason, the examples that you cite would be a reason for without cause. Panattoni would not have a claim on the port that the port did not perform under the terms of the option agreement.
Commissioner Zeta, I forgot the fact that we're moving into some contentious topics, and so I'd like to institute the round robin approach, and so we'll talk for 5 minutes each and keep going around the table. Thank you.
My question's not entirely answered, so I'll resume when it comes back to me.
Thank you, Commissioner. How about you, Commissioner McGregor?
Well, I only have one, let's see, yep. Okay, I only have one question or comment on this very slide that is up before us, and that is that what we're going to be getting is a lot of reports on the condition of the land, and it'll be updated and current. We have some already, but that was done, probably 6-7 years ago. The conditions can change. And so this will give us current conditions of that area. And so if the thing does go sideways or whatever, then we do have the ability to have those studies and be able to use them on any other developer that comes along to perhaps move forward with a piece of land that's within that option area. But it'll at least be current and usable. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's Commissioner Zeta is right. They do take a gamble on certain things, but I think there are things that while they may be static in the fact that there is land out there, the conditions of the land changes over time. And I just think having current assessments and surveys and engineering and those types of things is of value as we move forward with perhaps someone else. I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners Zeta and McGregor. Alan, so I had to read this third amendment to option to ground lease agreement a couple of times. And in my view, a cursory glance would say, gee, we're paying Panattoni if things don't work out for them. But if you read it more closely, it says that in the event that either the developer cannot proceed with a development project consistent with all code and ordinances due to condition caused by either the port or the city of Tumwater. So it's kind of a, you might say, very small insurance policy for the effort they put out if either the port or city of Tumwater does not care to follow their own codes and ordinances. So I'm okay with this clause. I can see where somebody might have a little heartburn with it, but I'm okay with it because it says Panattoni is going to try every effort to make this project successful. But if they get stymied by things like code changes when they have a development agreement, then they're entitled to some reimbursement. So I'm okay with that. The next paragraph is called termination of development agreement. And on that one, I realize this is only an advisory tonight, but I think that should read something closer to the port will not modify or terminate the development agreement without prior consent of the developer, because what we're giving them and what they're giving us, a development agreement, and the Port of Tumwater or City of Tumwater, all three parties have put considerable thought and effort into this development agreement. And when it gets signed, then it's a commitment by really all three parties to abide by this document. There is no, in my opinion, there is no, backing out for the port because we don't like it. The purpose of this document is to allow Panattoni 10 years to put a plan together and attract clients and businesses to that area with the assurance that if they put a road in, that road or they plan to put a road in next year, that road is still legal vis-a-vis codes and ordinances. So, the only change I have really is on that termination clause, that it should say the port will not modify or terminate the development agreement without prior consent of the developer. So again, it's a partnership. I mean, if both parties want to walk away from this development agreement, great, but it's not up to really one party to walk away once the development agreement is signed.
Yeah, we're exploring all options that we can with council on really our ability to frame that paragraph the best way.
So back to you, Commissioner Zeta.
So Commissioner Downey, I'm glad you brought up that fourth paragraph, the termination of development agreement. If we have the right to terminate the development agreement, I don't know why we would consult with the developer before exercising our right to terminate the development agreement. So I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum from Commissioner Downing. That should protect the port, which means protecting the taxpayers. It seems like we're giving away more and more to the developer, and I don't want to see us give away more and more to the developer. Back
Yeah,
to
we're working
issue,
with legal counsel on trying to figure out the best way to structure that.
yeah. So let's not give it all away here. Back to 3, reimbursement of expenses. Commissioner Downing characterized this as we would reimburse them if, for example, the city of Tumwater didn't follow their own code. I don't believe that's what this is saying. Is it, Mr. Rowe?
Specifically to the amendment, not related to
Reimbursement of
the
expenses,
reimbursement of
item 3.
expenditures, not specifically on that section.
No, I don't believe it is. I don't believe that there's a concern with Tumwater not following their own code. I believe that's a mischaracterization. It says in the event that the developer cannot proceed with the development project consistent with all codes and ordinances due to conditions caused by the port or the city. Not sure what that means, but I don't believe it means the city not following their own code. It sounds like it
A
means
change
maybe
or
that.
revision,
Say again?
a change possibly or revision.
Well, the city has the right to change its code.
Yes.
And the port has written some very generous vesting language into the agreement with Panattoni already. So if that very generous vesting language still isn't generous enough for Panattoni, and they still have difficulty meeting the code requirements of the city, for example, we're going to give them up to $125,000 if things are too difficult for them. If the land is too wet, if the stormwater or sewer is too difficult, for the traffic studies, for all these possible areas. And the excuse is that, well, these studies they've done will be useful to us, but they get to walk away from this without having really taken any risk. And the taxpayers are bearing all the risk for the developer. I don't think that's right.
Commissioner, I'm getting confused as what the question is here. I want to make sure I answer your question.
Well, it's not a question, it's a statement of value. I don't believe this is a fair paragraph. It's reimbursing the developer for risks that they ought to be bearing on their own. The taxpayers should not be bearing the development risks for the developer. So I object to this reimbursement of expenses paragraph.
I will respond to that statement. This is a condition where conditions have changed for the developer to make this project feasible. And the board is asking the developer to proceed forward on good faith, doing due diligence work, which provides great benefit to the port in the event of when this due diligence work is complete, along with other scenarios such as the HCP being complete, development can occur, which translates into revenues immediately for the port. That's a condition there to ask the developer to proceed in good faith to expend these resources, and then assuming that the project is feasible and all conditions stay the same, as presented when we originally executed the option.
So what I'm observing is that the developer had a meeting with Tumwater. Tumwater said, you're going to have a lot of extra expenses developing in this area because it's wet and because the sewer line is too small and there's traffic complications. And the developer says, whoa, we need more help from the port. And so the port says, okay, we'll give you an extra $125,000 if it doesn't work out for you. And the port says to the public, to the commissioners, well, you know, if they walk away from it, that's okay. They're going to give us these great studies and then we'll make money from another developer later. Yeah, maybe we will, maybe
So-
we won't. We're going to be out $125,000.
Keep in mind, this is a 50% agreement, so Panattoni is out at least the same amount. And I don't believe there have been any surprises to the developer or concerns related to what they've heard in their pre-submittal meetings.
I don't buy the argument that this will be beneficial to the port, that if it doesn't work for Panattoni, they will have these great studies that are going to make it beneficial for some other developer. I don't buy it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner McGregor?
I have no further comments, so thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Alan, so this is a complicated as well as a very big deal, and I appreciate all the work you put in this year on this subject. But so I want to ask the question, you know, our main focus right now is getting the ILA finalized and signed by the port, and then take it over to the city of Tumwater and for them to take action on it. So why exactly? And so, you know, I have to say that the first and second clauses are, you know, make sense, but in terms of amendments to the ground lease agreement, which is now about a year and a half old, or year and a half old, but we have third amendment to option to ground lease agreement. So, you know, if anybody can't tell, I'm pretty excited about this opportunity in Tumwater. Okay, I've made that pretty clear to pretty much to the world. But I want to ask the question, so why exactly is Panattoni coming to us now and saying, oh, we forgot to include this in the initial agreement and we need some coverage on reimbursement of expenses. And then, oh, we need to have some language talking about termination of development agreement. So I'm really, while we're trying to get this ILA accomplished, why are we even talking about amending the ground lease agreement?
So this has been a housekeeping item that's been out there for a while. We did address it in July. We were still working on some items. This was actually a term that was discussed back in July, and we've had more discussion on it and then decided to incorporate it. As far as, you know, vesting privileges go under the development agreement is an agreement between the port and the city of Tumwater. All benefit goes to the port and any developer it chooses as far as developing on its properties. Because of that two-party relationship, and the developer does consent, but it's not necessarily a direct party to the agreement. They did ask for some protection in there that was reasonable for, you know, the port for some reason getting into a relationship with Panattoni and having Panattoni proceed forward on expensive investments related to this development, and then for some reason change this agreement. You know, we have no plans to, but, you know, looking at the whole aspect of this in terms of, you know, any future event, they do want to protect, you know, their investments going forward and seeing that this project's feasible.
Okay, well, I'm quizzing you pretty hard because I want to do this as correct as possible. But how can we have a termination of development agreement if Panattoni is not a signatory on the development agreement? So you just finished saying that the development agreement is between Port of Olympia and City of Tumwater.
Correct. And this clause would
Feels
not
weird.
be needed This clause would not be needed if Panattoni was a party to that agreement, but they're saying we are not a party to that agreement. So we would at least, at the bare minimum, we'd at least like you to consult with us if for some reason you were to terminate that agreement, being that we've proceeded forward in good faith with significant investment under the assumption that this development agreement would stay in place.
Okay, last question, and then I'll ask my fellow commissioners if they have another question. So I guess I need to go back and look at this development agreement again. And do we have the latest draft copy from 2 weeks ago from the commission meeting 2 weeks ago? So I can go look that up.
Right now,
Yeah, in other words, not this second, but I want to go between now and our next meeting. I want to go reread the development agreement, the latest copy, latest version, so I can say how this paragraph 4 fits into that development agreement and why it's so important to Panattoni to, see that development agreement. I just want to be able to say, oh yeah, I see why the development agreement is of such concern to Panattoni, even they're not a signatory. So I just want to understand.
right? No, that makes sense. In a very nutshell explanation here on this meeting, it would be as if I asked you to come develop some property, Commissioner Downing. Why don't you come have a master plan to develop this 200 acres? You start in on 20 acres or 30 acres, and under the assumption that this is how code's going to be, there's this development agreement in place, you're going to provide trails, you're going to assist with providing community center property. But then for some reason that changes without you being involved in that decision process. Let's say you're only a third of the way into the development, but you've invested significant amount in infrastructure, let alone the study where we're talking also actual infrastructure because you have a bigger vision, but that's changed without your knowledge or consent. So it's appropriate to have some language in there that does involve the developer. And we're still having ongoing discussions as far as what the best way to actually word that is.
Back to you, Commissioner Zeta. Can you hear volume?
Two things. One is an answer to one of your questions, Commissioner Downing, and the other is I agree with you, Commissioner Downing. We should see the latest version of the development agreement since it is referenced here in this agreement that we're asked to approve at our next meeting. So I request that we be provided with the latest version of all the documents in our next meeting so we can see everything together. Commissioner Downing's right. We need to see it all. And then Commissioner Downing, you were asking, why is Panattoni asking for this stuff now at this late date? Why are they asking for this, for example, $125 protection? I think you may find some clues if you look at the record of Tumwater's October 21st meeting. It's on their website. It was a meeting between Tumwater's city development people and engineers and Panattoni discussing their first development proposal. And Panattoni was clearly surprised by some of the things they learned about the property. And that appears to be motivating their request for protection from the port, financial protection from the port.
I would like to
October
note
21st.
I would like to note as staff expert on this situation, I do disagree with the commissioner's assessment.
Go ahead, Alan.
Just wanted to make that note. I do not agree with the commissioner's assessment based off of her statement.
I recommend taking a look at the Tumwater's October 21st meeting. It's on their website. You will find it enlightening.
Well, that's been quite an advisory. Is there any other comments before we move on to the next item?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Alan, for that description. Next, we have the joint resolution the intent to collaborate with Thurston County on increase of commissioners, and our own Felicia Brown presenting. Hi, Felicia.
Hello, Commissioners. We have a presentation that I think Shayla's going to pull up in a second for us. Good evening, Felicia Brown, General Counsel for the Port of Olympia. This evening, I have an advisory on the joint resolution of mutual intent between the Port Commission and the Board of County Commissioners for Thurston County. Next slide, please. To go over the basics of this joint resolution of mutual intent, there was a joint meeting between the two agencies on July 21st. The joint resolution establishes mutual intent to collaborate on respective ballot measures, asking voters whether to increase the number of commissioners and redraw district boundaries to provide voter clarity and lower costs to the extent possible. This was discussed between the two commissions on October 19th for, I believe, the Board of County Commissioners, and October 25th for our commission. We had a discussion again on November 8th. Action was postponed on the November 8th and November 9th agendas for both boards. Next slide, please. And what you have in your packet today is a clean version of the red line version. The red line version is what we would like to discuss and get direction from the commission today. The edits are red line for the commission's ease of review. The joint resolution red line contains the commissioner's edits that were received after the packet was posted for the November 8th meeting, and also a comment from the from October 24th. And so today, it'd be great if we could get some guidance from the commission on the red line, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Felicia. Thank you for that description. I think that summarizes it pretty well. And so commissioners, we have the red line version in front of us, and we've done this sort of thing before where we go down to each red line comment and discuss it and take a vote on each change. And then that, well, really don't have to take a vote. In this case, some sort of consensus or majority that favors it a certain way, and we communicate that to Felicia so she can formulate for our next meeting a clean resolution. So first paragraph. It says, whereas the Port Commission, instead of shall, say intends to submit a ballot proposition. Is everyone okay with that edit? So am I. I see three thumbs. Okay, Felicia. Next we
That
have,
is approved.
okay. Next paragraph has in the middle of the paragraph, it said share in efforts to put forth measures. Instead of to increase, just say regarding increasing the number of commissioners. I'm good with that.
Fine with it.
Good. Next paragraph, we have, whereas the Port of Olympia Commission and the BOCC expressed that if simultaneous ballot measures are put forth,
Oh, you froze up, Commissioner.
So I'll take it from here. And we'll come back and see how Commissioner Downing feels about that. So Commissioner McGregor, how do you feel about that one?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, great. Let me get to where he was at. And make this a little bigger. Whereas the Port of Olympia Commission and the BOCC expressed that if simultaneous ballot measures are put forth, interagency collaboration can provide greater clarity to voters at lower cost to taxpayers. How's that look?
Looks good to me.
Right, I agree. On the next page, we have some additions. Whereas a majority of the members of the Port Commission, a majority being present and voting on this resolution and at a regular commission meeting. So Felicia, I'm assuming that these two sentence fragments here are required legalese, is that right?
That's exactly right. So that is
Okay.
something that the Board of County Commissioners has actually seen as well, or they're on board.
Okay.
with.
So that's fine with me, Commissioner McGregor.
Yep, fine with me.
Or-
And I also
all right.
make comment that if I can, Commissioner, that there were 2 word changes on the other page. The first page, one was a may, and I'm fine with that. And the last one, under the last whereas, was an and I'm fine with that. So
Okay, great. Me too. So that's great.
Great, got it.
Moving in, good. Moving into the in the second page now, there are 4, we resolve. Section 1, if there's at least 3,000 residents by May 2022, then the county board intends to put the question to the general election. I think that's just adding the S, is that right?
No, this is a whole section that Commissioner Downing put forth.
I see. So that section 1 looks good to me. How about you, Commissioner McGregor?
yeah, looks good. I'm fine.
Okay, and section 2, if we get to 3,000 residents by May 22, then the current Port Commission strongly recommends that the incoming commission put the question to the voters. Now, we discussed this at our last meeting, Commissioner McGregor, and I had suggested that we just say that we wouldn't make a recommendation to them, but we would make a resolution on our own here. If Thurston County reaches, we should use the same language as in section 1. If Thurston County reaches 300,000 residents by May 22, then the Port Commission shall put the question of a 5-member commission to the voters in the November 22 election.
We can wordsmith this thing to death here, and I don't want to keep pushing it to another meeting, but I'm fine with the way section 2, it's just strongly recommends to the incoming commission. They can then do as they choose at that point. So I'm fine with the wording that's here. I'm fine with everything that's been suggested to this point in time that I see in the red line. And so I'm okay with the way it is. I'm ready to bring it forward for out of the advisory at the next meeting when we can. So.
Well, Commissioner McGregor, would you consider making it stronger, since it's very unusual to, in a resolution, make a recommendation to a future commission? Instead, our resolutions say will, shall, may. And if a future commission wants to change that, they can. I think it would be cleaner and in keeping with standard practice if in section 2 we would say the Port Commission will put the question or shall put the question to the voters. And then if the next commission changes their mind, they can change the resolution.
I don't care. We can go through this thing and we can change all the words we want to, and we may never get to agreement. Let's just get something to agreement so that we can then move it on to the county commissioners after we've taken formal action on it, which would be December 13th at this point. And I don't know when the county will have it in front of them. I don't know what their schedule is for the month of December, but let's just get to something we can agree to send forward and try to eliminate the wordsmithing that we've gone through. This is like the 3rd time we've seen it. And I just as soon have something done and ready to bring forward for action. So I'll let the 2 of you handle the wordsmithing if that's what you want to do, but I'm fine with the way that it reads in the unredlined edition. I think it's ready to go as is. So go ahead.
Well,
I'm back, by the way.
Great.
I'm back.
good to
Sorry
have you
for the
back,
interruption.
Commissioner Downing. So I'll just catch you up. We went through the rest of the document and Commissioner Downing or Commissioner McGregor and I agreed on the rest of the document. We are discussing section 2 on the last page and discussing whether it might not be better to have section 2 worded about the same as section 1. Instead of making a recommendation to the new commission, just say it the same way section 1 does. Say we intend to put the question to the voters, instead of making the very unusual language of we recommend to the next commission. Let's just say what we intend. And then if they want to make a change, they can change the resolution.
I'm fine with that, Commissioner Zeta. So you're saying you're good with section 1, talking about Thurston County. Section 2 will read just about the same way, except that we're talking about the Port Commission, not Thurston County. And then section 3 talks about the collaboration efforts. And so you're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I'm good
So-
with that too. I'm a little unclear because yours truly will be sitting on the commission next year along with the 2 new folks. And I'm just a little unclear about how that's going to work, but I'd like to give that a try just as you spoke about it. So,
Okay, so section 2 would then read, just like section 1, if Thurston County is determined to have at least 3,000 residents by May 2nd, 2022, then the Port Commission intends to put the question of a 5-member commission to the voters in the November 22 general election.
okay, fine. Yeah, fine. Good.
Great.
I have a question. So for the Port Commission, unlike the county, we don't have to meet the 300,000 resident threshold. That would mean that we're only going to put it forward if we meet 300,000 residents. Is that the intent here?
Yeah, I think the intent is to keep it the same as the county. Not to change that. We're still going to keep it the 300,000 the way it is now.
So the 300,000 was never a threshold for us at the port.
The 300,000 is currently in section 2 language.
For the county.
And for it, and for the port. In section 2, it says if Thurston County does reach 300,000, then the current Port Commission strongly recommends. And instead of staying strongly
follow.
recommends, we're just going, right,
follow
so we're
too.
leaving the 300,000 just the same.
Right,
Okay, we're
so
gonna leave-
Commissioner Downing, I guess to further get clarification on my part, Commissioner Downing, you put in the language for section 2, so that's what you suggested. And you put in 300,000. I don't know if that was intentional, given that the RCWs do not require the Port Commission to reach a population threshold in order to put forth this ballot proposition.
Alicia, yeah, you, let's just face it, Alicia, the port is actually free to go to, take a vote on a 5-member commission tomorrow. So literally we could do it tonight if we wanted to. We're not doing that, obviously. Forces in the community prevailed upon us to give Thurston County the chance to get to 300,000. And so then we could march forward together. If Thurston County doesn't make 300,000, this document is silent on that issue, and that's intentional. So this document is silent on the issue if Thurston County doesn't make it to 300,000. I mean, so I just want to say that, but where we left, and in all fairness to that joint meeting we had with the Board of County Commissioners, they feel confident that they're going to make it to 300,000. They would like us to wait until, I think it's, May 2nd, and then we'll all go together. So that's what we're talking about. And that's what we'd like to express in this document, and period.
So Commissioner Downing, are we agreed that the language of section 1 and section 2 will be virtually the same, except one says Thurston County Board of Commissioners and the other says Port Commission?
Yeah, we are agreed. Yes, we are.
Great. All right. Is that clear, Felicia?
I think it's clear. I want to be very clear that I don't recommend that the Port Commission obligates itself to something that's not required by statute. And that's what I'm hearing happening. So that's a decision you guys can obviously make, but I want to make sure that my recommendation is also clear, that this was written so that the Port Commission adhere to RCW requirements. The Port Commission is now putting forth an additional requirement on itself. You can do that, but just know that's an additional decision.
Felicia, we're
Are we
using
s-
the same language. We're saying we intend to put the question.
For a threshold that's not coming from the statute. I just want to make sure that we all understand that.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. We're agreeing to the same deal as the county. We're agreeing to do it with the county.
Well, okay. Alicia, I'd like to have a short conversation with Alicia. Let's just try a couple of words here on that section 2. The Port Commission intends to wait until May 2nd of 2022 to take any action, to take any vote on moving to a 5-member commission.
Okay,
I don't see
And-
what the drop, I don't see what's the problem wording it just the same as the county paragraph.
Because our general counsel weighed in on this topic and said, you potentially are tying your hands. And I think that let's just see where we're at. And what we agreed to with Felicia's clarification is we agreed to hold off on any vote until Thurston County has a chance to make it to 300,000 by May 2nd. So we're holding off on that vote, and that's the actual truth. So really, in second thought, talking to Felicia, I think paragraph 2 should say, the Port Commission agrees to not take any action on moving to a 5-person commission before May 2nd of 2022. And then we just leave it at that.
No, I don't think so. I think that muddies the water and I think it's clearer and it states the same meaning if we use the same language that the county uses. If Thurston County has 300,000 residents by May 2nd, 2022, then the Port Commission intends to put the question to the voters. It has the same meaning, it's cleaner, and it's perfectly parallel to the commission.
it has a different impact. If Thurston County does not reach 300,000, then what is the port going to do?
As Commissioner Downing said, this resolution is silent on that fact, whether we use the old wording or the new wording. If
So the
we,
agreement from the joint meeting was that
This is
300,000
what-
reached.
Felicia, this is what the commissioners are agreeing.
No,
The
I understand.
commissioners,
I understand that this is what the commissioners are agreeing, Commissioner Zeta. What I'm making sure is that the commission understands that my recommendation is something different. So I don't want what I'm saying or what I'm going to put into action, which is whatever this commission agrees to and directs me to do, is done under my actual recommendation. And so these are very much going to be two different things.
Oh, okay, Felicia, let's go ahead and put this on the action calendar for next time. And we will have both versions on there for section 2. One version reads as Commissioner Zeta has indicated, and the other version says the Port of Olympia Commission agrees to not take any vote on moving to a 5-person commission before May 2nd, 2022. And I think-
is that second version what you're recommending, Felicia?
My recommendation is that we follow the RCWs, which do not put any population threshold on the Port Commission before putting forth this ballot proposition. That's what I've heard since day one, since this idea has come forward, and that's what follows our RCWs.
So it sounds like Commissioner Downing's suggestion does not address your concern, does it?
It does. It follows the RCW requirements.
Okay, that's not clear to me, but let's go with Commissioner Downing's suggestion and see both of those, and we'll choose next time.
Commissioner McGregor.
My only comment on this is that I was at a meeting last week and Commissioner Menzer and I both talked about the subject of 5 commissioners, and he mentioned that they are within about 2,600 individuals from meeting that plateau, and that he's very optimistic that by April, they will have surpassed that. So just information I'll pass on from what I learned at a meeting this week. So looks
So
like
this
they're
may all be
progressing.
moot.
It may all be muted,
All this
but
hair pulling may be
anyway.
moot.
I don't have any to pull, so I got to be careful.
Anyway,
Anyway,
Section
so-
3, I believe, has one more change to strike out determined and replace with the word found.
Whichever word we use, I think we should be
Fine.
consistent through the whole document, so.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you
And then
all.
my, whatever that comment was I had, that's no longer applicable. So that comment that you showed, you know.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, moving on to advisory calendar number 3, Citizen Advisory Committee Report, Evaluation of Non-Motorized and Shared Transportation Options for North Point. Sam Gibney. Hi, Sam.
Hi there. So the POCAC members that worked on this, which were Cameron Wilson and Gigi McClure, were unable to make it today. But I think the report speaks for itself. In the way that we've set up the products for the POCAC, this would be considered a white paper or just an informational report that can be used to inform the commission and staff as it considers options down the road. So there's no action required on the part of the commission tonight. We just wanted to bring this forward and let you know that the POCAC had finished its, the subcommittee had finished its work on this issue and are providing this report for your information. And then as we continue planning for the development of the destination waterfront and the Port Peninsula, we will take this into consideration.
Thank you, Sam. It's appreciate, is it Cameron and Gigi that authored this report? Okay. Well, you know, I'd love to talk more about this report and I have some other ideas. I think that some sort of transportation and north to the peninsula ties right in with destination waterfront and increasing usage of the peninsula. So I really feel like we got to figure something out. So I'd like to, you know, talk with the POCAC, you know, perhaps at a future meeting and maybe we can move forward under a different type of request next year.
And this is good information for staff to build on it as well. So, and that was really the intent of setting this as a type of just informational report that then we can build on or the POCAC can do future work on, but it's good information. I appreciate the level, the effort that they put into it, and they did some good research. And even if it's some of the options that they came up with don't seem very feasible, it still adds to our knowledge and helps us down the road.
Thank you, Sam. Commissioners, any comment from you on this POCAC report?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for doing it.
Well, thank you. Next, so that takes care of our advisory calendar. We're moving right along and now we gonna invite public comment on the advisory calendar. Any questions from the public regarding the lease option amendment, regarding the joint resolution intent to collaborate with Thurston County on increase of commissioners, and the Citizen Advisory Committee report evaluating non-motorized and shared transportation options for North Point? Any comments on our advisory calendar tonight?
I do see a hand.
I see Carla Wolfsberg. Ms. Wolfsberg, would you like to give public comment?
Yes, I would. Thank you. My name is Carla Wolfsberg. And I would like to just say that with regards to the Panattoni, the development agreement with the city of Tumwater, is that I would like to see that the citizens do not take all the risk. I think that would be an unfair part of this development agreement, because I think that we're already taking lots of risks with the amount of tax levy that you appropriate to various projects, that I think that we should not have to also bear this burden. And I hope that you would reconsider taking that and take it out. up to 125,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg. Anybody else like to give public comment on the advisory calendar tonight? Not hearing any. Any commission response to Ms. Wolfsburg at this time?
None at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Zedek?
So Ms. Wolfsburg, I agree. The taxpayers are already being asked to take risks in leasing our last stretch of urban forest, our biggest, best stretch of urban forest in Tumwater, to a mega warehouse developer near a middle school and near the city's primary drinking water aquifer. There were public health and safety risks, environmental risks, and last but not least, environmental risks. Our biggest burden to the taxpayers is the port's massive debt, $60 million. The biggest chunk of that debt is for risks we have taken with properties. We spent $7.5 million on the Lacey CBC. We spent millions preparing East Bay for developers, and we owe over $20 million in debt for risks we've taken for properties. We should be making money on existing port properties, not incurring more risks and more debt, and certainly not covering developers' gambling losses.
Sam, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the commissioners understand that the debt numbers that Commissioner Zeta is quoting are indeed the original principal amounts, but they do not reflect our current debt balance. That is a different number. I don't have that ready for you this evening, but those are the original principal amounts that were borrowed, and then we of course have been making principal payments on that on those for several years now, many years now.
Yes, in fact, even though we have been making payments, we have not paid down much. And the numbers that I got from our finance team were provided last week, updated as of 2019. So I would be happy to receive more current data from port staff. That is the most current data that has been provided. And I'll be asked not to be corrected on the most current data that port staff have provided. I would really love to see current data provided directly by staff, and I would really love to see current financial measures provided by port staff.
And indeed, just to make sure that the commissioners and the public are
Not asking for a response, thank you.
I thank you. I was addressing the chair. Mr. Chairman, may I clarify?
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so the numbers that were provided to all the commissioners were for the principal amounts that were originally borrowed. So that does not reflect the actual debt balance. And so that was what Mr. Peach sent out to all the commissioners. And so the debt balances is a different figure, and it is less than the 60 million. And I'm happy to provide the balances to you. What was sent was the amounts borrowed and how that broke down across the years for what business units.
In fact, the figures that Mr. Peach said were for principal, interest, and total of principal and interest, and they do include what's been paid down. For example, the log loaders, as I recall, the total amount owing right now is $2.4 million, and they cost 1.9 million when the debt was taken out. So this does include principal and interest, and it does include some payments. So it would be excellent if port staff would present to the commission and to the public the current figures. That would be ideal.
Well, thanks for that side discussion. I think that covers public comment and commission response. Next, we have commissioner reports, and commissioners, do you have anything of interest to report tonight before we go to other business and we have a topic there?
No, I'll just mention that I did attend the study meeting out in Rainier at the senior center out there. And that's where I was having discussion, or Commissioner Menzer made the statement in the report on the 5-member board, which I also provided some information. But I want to make comment that both commission elects attended that. And so they're already starting to attend some of those things. And so it was good for them to hear what's going on out in South County. Thank you.
Zita?
This is relevant to the issue that Commissioner McGregor brought up for our next discussion. But I will report that I have spoken with elected officials and community leaders by phone, and we have support at every level of government, local, county, state, from elected leaders and from community service leaders for transitioning the Oyo Hotel from a hotel to a senior living facility. And I hope that we will take advantage of that support to move this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's see. Last week I attended, I was very privileged to attend the Thurston County Chamber Forum. We had former Governor Christine Gregoire talking to us about homeless initiatives in Seattle. And I just found her, I was just so pleased to be in the same room as she. She's a wonderful speaker, engaging and super intelligent, and wow, what a role model. So that's my report of those activities. Let's move on, since Commissioner Zita is ready to talk about the Oyo Hotel. Under other business, we have a topic called the Oyo Hotel, and Commissioner McGregor brought this forward tonight. Commissioner McGregor, do you want to lead off a discussion here?
Yes, thank you. I just, knowing that what we've heard in the community over the past several weeks now, what minimal discussion we had at the last commission meeting about wanting to have a further discussion on it. I would just like to see us bring this forward and have a pretty in-depth discussion, even if it requires a special commission meeting for this, Commissioner. So I don't want to schedule it, but I know that our time together is limited. We have Turkey Day and the day after are already spoken for this week. Next week, we have 3 to 4 days at WPPA, so that pretty much occupies that week. But if there's any opportunity that we can sit down and have a pretty frank discussion on this to see where we go, I would like to recommend that we do that. I've got some documentation and information that I'd like to pass on at that time, and I'll have it somewhat written up to provide input and information on it. But I think it's we need to bring this forward to have a really special commission meeting just to talk about this and spend as much time as we need to, at least 2 hours, to see if we can't bring this around with potentially having an action taken at that meeting with some direction to staff. So that's all I wanted to bring up.
Good, I fully agree.
Thank you, Commissioner McGregor. Commissioner Zita?
This is long overdue. Let's do it.
It'd be a great thing for this commission to close out their 6 years together with some movement on this issue. We have heard from the public, high and low and across the field, that it's a worthy endeavor. So Rudy, if you're listening, it's a worthy endeavor. And I don't know what the chances of success are. It could be pretty small, but if we could get this done, that'd be pretty amazing. So I think that this commission is interested in knowing some sort of work plan and some sort of dollar cost estimate, because it may involve bringing in a consultant to put together the best possible application. And I think this commissioner's on board, Sam. So, we'd like to see something happen either at that work session. And all we have left is one work session and one commission meeting. So, and obviously, what I'm asking for is a some sort of work plan and some sort of cost estimate for what this is going to cost to formally put a package together to send to the FAA and loop in Congresswoman Strickland into our efforts and that kind of thing, so that we can give it the best possible chance of success. So.
So,
Commissioner
go ahead.
Zita?
I agree with Commissioner Downing that we should get a work plan from staff. I don't think we need a cost estimate at this point. Let's just do it.
Well, I think we have to have a discussion amongst ourselves as to what we want to try to achieve here, because there's some conflicting information in the documents I've gotten that I would like to have staff explain a little better and bring out. And I think that we could certainly ask, as Commissioner Downing has suggested, that we ask them to bring forth some kind of a plan and and I do think we need to know what those costs are, because people need to hear what it's going to cost if we do this. And I mean, there's things that we don't know. Is there a letter of intent between the hotel and the housing authority? Is there a purchase sale agreement between them? Or is this just, they're just wanting to have us discuss it? Well, I think we need to have something a little more concrete than just a verbal confirmation that one's wanting to sell and the other one's wanting to buy. That would be nice. And I think it strengthens our position to go to the FAA with something in writing from the seller and the purchaser that they've agreed to something, providing there is FAA approval. And so I think that we need to have that. I think we need to have that discussion. And that's why I'm encouraging to have it as soon as possible rather than waiting too late. And that's why I was suggesting a special commission meeting, that this was the only subject we had and that we could take action at that special commission meeting, and it could be annotated on the agenda as such. So thank you.
Okay, interesting. Commissioner Zita, please.
I agree with Commissioner McGregor. We should have a special commission meeting on this, and it would be great to have all the information possible. And as Commissioner Downing suggests, yes, a work plan. There is no need to have a cost estimate for what's going to cost staff to put this together. I want to note that we have never had a cost estimate as for what it would cost to put the Panattoni deal together at the port. We still do not have a financial analysis, a feasibility study, a market study for Panattoni. It's a much bigger deal. It's 200 acres. It's multi-million dollars. This Oyo Hotel to senior housing, Sam said a few tens of thousands. It's small potatoes compared to Panattoni. We would be remiss in our duty to the community if we slowed it down by holding it to higher standards and asking for more bells and whistles and asking the staff to jump through more hoops before we even move forward with a work plan. Let's make it easy. Let's get it done.
So we'll leave it up to you, Commissioner Downing, as to what the next step is and when that might happen. So
Thank you.
kind of threw the
Yeah,
ball into your court.
I think it's pretty clear that we've communicated to Sam that we'd like to see something happen before mid-December. So we need to have either an action or other at a commission meeting or a special meeting, whatever works best. I'm open to either, subject to schedules. Go ahead, Sam.
Staff was planning on putting this on the December 6th work session a topic. And at that point, we were going to make some recommendations for what we felt would be the most appropriate next steps, which would include the engagement of a airport planner to help develop a scope of work and the steps required to, and again, I want to be clear, there's not an application process. There is an argument to be made to the FAA. There are considerable other things or significant things to consider within that, which includes were the FAA to grant the release of the property, we have to then demonstrate to them that it will be reinvested in something that will benefit civic aviation. So we actually have to have an equivalent either property or some other type of investment that would have to then provide the same type of revenue to the airport. So there's some fairly complicated steps in there. So we wanted to engage the services of an airport planner to then help develop that scope of work to a level of effort and a cost estimate for that. And then after that, then we could develop a timeline. So that's what I was planning on bringing to the commission for December 6th. It sounds like Commissioner McGregor has some other topics that he would like to add into that. So I'm happy to help to work with the chair to set the agenda for that meeting. And we do have at least one other topic on the 6th, and I'm sorry I don't have that right up in front of me. So I'll have to look at the agenda schedule and see what else we had planned for that December 6th work session.
Well, sure, there's a lot of things that go into this, like how much would we, what price would we set for somebody to buy this land? And then given that price, how do we justify the return to the airport? And will that be an equivalent return as the lease, which I wrote an email to Alan Rowe and suggested or asked for that number. And I'm pretty sure it was $90,000 a year for both the Comfort Inn and the Oyo Hotel. And so some portion of that would be the Oyo Hotel only. And so then, how do we account for, let's say 50 years out in the future, collecting $50,000 a year, but now you're not collecting it because you sold the property. So there's a lot of financial magic that has to go into it. You're right. And then of course, how would you spend the money? Because it doesn't go back to the port, it goes back to the airport budget. So, and that's part of the rules. So a lot of things to consider there.
I did pull up the agenda topics for the 6th. We also have scheduled for them the economic benefit study, as well as discussion on the Capitol Lake Deschutes estuary decision durability discussion. So we have some pretty hefty topics already on the 6th. So perhaps then the commission would like to consider a different date than the 6th.
For this item you're talking about.
For this
item, yeah. That's why I suggest a special meeting. I think it's important enough. We should have a special meeting on this and give it due time for us to work through all this and to figure out where we want to go. And that's why I'm suggesting it would be an annotation on the agenda that action may be taken at the special meeting, just so that because it may be time sensitive enough, and with the time it takes to get through some of these regulations and stuff, it may take longer than we expect, but at least get the process rolling if we're going to do anything.
Okay, I will work with the chairman to find an appropriate date for that if he so chooses.
How about you, Commissioner Zito?
So I agree with Commissioner McGregor. It would probably make sense to have a special meeting just for this item. We should allow for the possibility of action. We should also allow for public comment. Ordinarily, special meetings do not allow for public comment. The public is very interested and concerned in this. And as you will recall, the state Supreme Court has insisted that we need to take public comment, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because we get good input from the public that helps us make better decisions. And without public input, we would never have gotten to this point. 2 commissioners would have sunk this a long time ago. So we need to have public comment at the meeting. And I find it so interesting that all of a sudden we're asking all these financial questions. Is it going to be worthwhile? How much is it going to cost? and we're not asking those same questions of Panatone. We need to ask the same questions of big developments like Panatone. We should be holding them to at least as high a financial standard, and we're not.
Good. Okay. So we'll get back to you on a possible work session. It might be a special work session the week of December 6th, I'm guessing. And we'll move this thing forward. Thank you, Sam, for taking the bull by the horns. Thank you, Rudy and Sam, for putting in thinking caps over this issue, and we'll see what we can't do. So with that, I'd like to move on to meeting announcements. Well, commissioners and court staff, we're winding down on this 2021 here. We have a commission work session scheduled for December 6th at 2:30 p.m. and our last regular commission meeting of the year, December 13, 2021. And so that's our upcoming meetings. And I want to thank you all for participating tonight. Good discussion. And with that, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'd just like to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Have a great week with family, friends, and relatives. And, you know, I wish you peace and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.